The key to breaking through and getting an audience is finding that balance between what's current but also putting your own original spin on it. Being consistent, taking the risks, putting yourself out there. Radio's still a massively important cog in the machine of the journey of a record or an artist. When it comes to streaming, Spotify, if you're a new artist and you've got no monthly listeners, the chances of you getting an editorial playlist are pretty slim. Yeah. Whereas on radio, a new music show can pick your track up and give you the spotlight, give you the platform and start the story.
Every Friday night, millions tune into Danny Howard on BBC Radio 1. On the Dojo podcast, he reveals how risk-taking and pure passion turned him into a household name in dance music. When you pick the hottest record, what are you looking for in an up-and-coming artist?
To be a hottest record, the most important things are...
Hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Dojo podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Danny Howard from Radio 1, host of the primetime slot on Friday nights on Radio 1. A very, very influential music show around the world. And Danny, not just a broadcaster, but a beloved industry figure in terms of the talent he nurtures, the music he plays. And welcome to the Dojo podcast, Danny.
That was quite the intro. I'm not going to be able to get my head out the door, but thank you very much. And it's nice to hear and great to be here. I love what you do with the Dojo platform. I subscribe myself because I like to see what a lot of your producers are up to in the videos. I think really informative.
And the learning never ends.
It never ends. It's one thing I would always say to people is never stop learning.
100%, I agree with that. I feel that sometimes, when we get capable in the sort of craft that we, that we work in and the career that we work in, sometimes there can come a little bit of arrogance where you feel like I know it all now. But really, when you start seeing other people work and you thought shit, I'm using the same software, but I've never thought of doing things in that way. And you can just always find a different angle when you watch other people work. So it's amazing that you subscribe to the Dojo platform and that the learning doesn't end for you either.
The thing is I think you should never stop learning, and there can be a bit of an arrogance when you think, or when you've achieved so much, or when you know so much. But I think you're up against a young generation of producers who have got nothing to lose, and they're full of energy, and they haven't got any rules, so they're going to find happy accidents, their own way of doing things, and I think you can learn off that as well.
100%, and they're good.
I think that's definitely one thing to bear in mind. No matter how experienced or no matter what you've achieved, just keep an eye on the new generation coming through, because they want to do what you're doing.
Well, exactly, and if you don't keep up with the times, it can happen very quickly as an artist that you sound dated and not up to what's currently going on in the scene. But before we talk about new talent, the current music scene, I want to go back a little bit. And we've touched upon this a little bit before the cameras were rolling. You were you're reluctant to sometimes go into telling your backstory because you've told it many times before. But I think it would be really interesting to the audience just to kind of figure out how did it all start for you and how you got into electronic music? And that's what I'm personally also interested in. It's how did the passion get ignited for this career?
Well, when I was very young, it was my older brother. He was the one that actually was the one that had the decks in the house. And I always used to watch him and be intrigued in what a DJ actually does and technically on the decks. And that was it really. From there on, I always wanted to be the DJ. And then when I got into uni, I figured that I had so much time on my hands, which I should have been using to study, that I got a pair of decks. I borrowed a pair of decks off a friend of mine, Adam, and just practiced learning how to mix on vinyl every single day. And that's where it came from, really. I've always loved dance music, always loved the idea of what a DJ does. And then when I got to uni, eventually just took the plunge and just practiced every single day until I could
Was it always house from the beginning? Or
always house, I was always into my older brother, he was more like the happy hardcore, ravey, 90s, he had all the tape packs back in the day. And that was actually the high energy stuff was, and the harder sound was what he was into. So that was my first exposure into dance music. But then when I sort of figured out my own path and the music that connected with me the most. It was like the old school American house DJs, Dennis Ferrez, Roger Sanchez.
Yeah.
Although my hero is Carl Cox and the way he DJs. So I like all dance music, really, but yeah, house music. Always centered around house music for me. And then at uni, my students' union, managed to blag myself a gig at the student union. I got all my friends to come down. I played in the football team, and I lived in a very big shared accommodation. So I got everyone down. It was a Sunday night, which is like a rubbish night of the week, and managed to get a lot of people down there. And then I said to all my friends, go and tell the manager Kenny of the student union, how good the DJ was. And then so the next day I went in. I said, Kenny, thank you very much for the opportunity. I loved it.
Did he offer you a slot?
Well, I said, I've been getting some good feedback. He went, oh yeah, I've been getting some good feedback too. I was like, all my mates going up. So it was just, a classic example of trying to hustle. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then eventually, he offered me a 1 hour dance slot on the busiest night, which was the Wednesday night. Right. It was all party tunes, but we used to have 1 hour of dance. Yeah. And then that became my slot. And that's where I really learned to... I saw my older brother DJ, and technically that's what I was watching. But being a DJ, reading the crowd, feeling the vibe, learning how to take a room, where you want it to go, that was really learned in that student union, and also doing parties as well.
This is so important, and I love that. We have many parallels, by the way. Yeah. Older brother introduced me to electronic music as well. Yeah. Started DJing at uni as well, myself, at Bournemouth Uni. My first show was at the Student Union Club.
Oh wow! And the English version of you.
Yeah, the old. No, I studied in the UK as well because I am German, but I went to Bournemouth Uni. Oh wow! So I played in the old fire station, which was the club owned by the Student Union. Nice. Yeah. Cool. So that was my first ever show. So a lot of parallels. I just want to get real quick into what you just said about learning the craft. And I feel like some of the younger generation kind of missing out on that part, in part because we have a crisis situation when it comes to smaller clubs in the UK. Yep. And in other parts, it's because careers happen quicker. People get propelled onto bigger stages in a shorter amount of time. Well, I feel like our generation, he really had to sort of learn the craft in the residencies. And I had a residency as well, and it was invaluable because, as every DJ knows, a big crowd is easy. Yeah. It's when you got a half full dance floor with a lot of dynamics and variables going on. Yeah. That's when you really learn the craft, and it's easy to clear that kind of dance floor as well.
Yeah, and that's why I always say I could never be a wedding DJ. Yeah. I get asked by a lot of friends, can you DJ my wedding? And I'm like, no. I'd rather just come because, your friends are going to like the music, but are there aunties, are there grandmas? There's a lot of different tastes. Although DJing weddings or DJing birthday parties, I did a lot of that. Is a good way of learning the hard way of how to DJ and what tunes work. And I was never afraid to play what I needed to play to keep a dance floor. And I think what you say is true about a lot of producers just get fast tracked into clubs, onto big stages, and they miss that art of playing the right tunes because you get a big crowd, you play banger back to back after each other. And yes, that's easy, but there's never any. You're just constantly up there, and I think it's important to learn how, or be brave to play something maybe to bring the crowd down, so that in 2 or 3 tracks time, I'm going to take them to that point, and that only comes with experience.
Yeah, that's 100%, and it's just so funny that we have the same reference in our head, because I remember this interview of Sven Vath vividly, and he was just saying I'm at this current track right now. I know I want to get to this track. Yeah. And I got to figure out the ones in between, the journey. How do I get from that one to that one that are so different in vibe, energy, feelings? And that's the art, isn't it?
It's funny. I was in Pasha a few weeks ago in Ibiza, and it was coming towards the end of the set. And I knew that I was going to play this track at the end that would take the roof off. I knew it works because I've played there before, and I brought it down for a couple of tracks. And my girlfriend turned to me and she went, "I think you need to play something a bit more known." I was like,
I'm getting there. I thought of it.
I know
before you.
They're not going anywhere, and we just need a little breather, and then the roof's going to go off. But the thing is, if I was just playing big track after big track and then played that track I wanted to play, the impact wouldn't have hit the same.
Absolutely. And sometimes I have to remind myself while I'm DJing because
you get carried away.
Yeah, you get carried away, and sometimes it's just like patience, Benjamin, right? Like we'll get there. We'll get to that track, 3 or 4 more tracks to get there, and then the impact will be bigger than when you drop it now. And you have to rein yourself in even sometimes.
But you know that, I know that. But for anyone that's watching who's new to DJing, I'd just say you got to have that in the back of your mind. And I said, a few minutes ago, it's about being brave with it, knowing your tunes, because it is risky to be like, I was going to bring it down a bit, and you might feel it's got a bit flatter, but you just got to back yourself and just make sure you're ready and waiting with that big tune. That's
because you can play something that would sound like you're bringing the energy down compared to like a banger, but the tracks that you put around it can either elevate it or bring it down. So like programming the right thing can really amplify a certain track.
Yeah.
What you put around it matters so much.
100%. Yeah. I don't mean to take it boring, by the way. I just mean like, rather than just playing like a big track, put a roller that's still got the energy, going to keep crowd locked in, but it doesn't always have to be that big hitter.
Okay, amazing. So that's where you learned your craft at uni. I take it from there, did you already had your sights on sort of getting a full-time career as a DJ? Was that it? Or was it at that stage sort of like, I'm just sort of expressing myself here as like a, a creative hobby type of thing?
Never to the level that I've managed to achieve, but I just always wanted to be the DJ. I love music. I love playing music. Any excuse to get the decks out. Whilst I was at uni, not only at the student union, but I used to organise barbecues. We never even had a barbecue, but I used to organise barbecues just to have people around so I could get the decks out and play music to people. Like any excuse just to be the DJ. Yeah. That's all I ever wanted to be. And there was a DJ in Liverpool who used to play at the Student Union occasionally called Dave Booth. He used to be the resident for a legendary night called Garland's back in the day.
Oh, I remember Garland's. I used to go to Garland's in Ibiza.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. Then you'll know Dave Booth. Then
at Kenya it was in San Antonio.
And they did Eden as well. He sadly passed away, RIP, but I remember saying to him, what do I need to do to become a DJ? And he was like, well, you need to produce music or you need to put on your own parties and grow a community. And I was like, well, producing, that'll take me too long, so I'm just going to do parties. So I started putting on parties and doing my own nights at the Student Union. Then back home in Blackpool, me and my best friend Alex used to put on nights there, just as much as I could, just to DJ and grow a following locally that way. And when I left uni, the parties were doing all right. We used to do stuff in Manchester as well, and that was that really. And we made. Well,
it's such a valuable insight because I always say to my students, you're not going to get around doing it all, right? At some point comes the label, at some point comes the own party, and it's very important for people who want to build a career in this industry to kind of dip their toes in and get started with doing all of these things because like at some point you will be doing these things anyway, like, and you might as well start now.
100%.
When you did your own parties, did you feel like at some point like, okay, like I've got a sort of regular crowd here coming, something's happening? When was the point when you started noticing like, okay, that something's happening now?
Well, that was the Radio 1 thing. They were running a competition, so they do Ibiza every year, and they were running a DJ competition to promote that, and it was advertised. I used to listen to Radio 1 all the time, as a lot of my friends did.
Still do.
Yeah, no, good, I'm glad. Right answer. And they were advertising this competition, and at the time, hearing it myself, I was like, there's no point because there's going to be so many people entering that, and I sort of talked myself out of it. But then, like a lot of my friends, and I remember my sisters ringing me, like, you should enter this, and I was like, do you know what? I'll do it. And I entered. Long story short, got to the final 6, went down to London to compete in a series of challenges, mixing, hyped the mic. We did a remix, and then we did and then the final 2 did a live 5-minute mix on the breakfast show. And so I won that, and the prize was to play in Ibiza at Ushuaia, and that was an incredible experience. It was my first gig in Ibiza. And
what year was that?
2011.
2011.
Yeah,
okay.
So it was a while ago.
Do you remember the lineup back then?
Yeah, it was Calvin Harris, Eric Prydz, Pete. I mean, I was more excited to meet Pete Tong.
Yeah.
So it was a huge lineup, and Ushuaia at the time it would just become like the hot new venue. Annie Mac was on there, B Traits. It was incredible, and I was on first and warmed up, and then I remember the boss of Radio 1 coming up to me after my set saying, "What are you doing later?" I said, "I'm just hanging out. Do you want to play Space?" I was like, yes. Yeah. So I did a walk slot there as well. And that was the prize for winning that competition. And then what came after was never in the plan, nor was it in Radio 1's plan. But I think the boss at the time had this idea to bring back a show called Dance Anthems that had been legendary in the past. And it stopped for a few years. And then
wasn't Dave Pearce doing Dance Anthems?
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah. It was a very different show then. But
yeah, it was more sort of towards the trance Euro dance aspect, but like very popular show.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's huge. I remember Sunday nights.
Yeah.
But dance music was starting to have a mainstream wave again, and they didn't have a show that had that more commercial appeal. They had obviously Annie and Pete doing their thing, but they wanted a more like a mainstream dance show, and they wanted a host for it, and they got me down to do some demos, and then in April 2012 offered me the slot and began on Radio 1. So that's a really long way of saying that was the point I thought, okay, something's really happening now.
But that's an amazing story, Danny. And I really love like how competitions used to be a thing that could really change people's lives. Yusuf won Bedroom Bedlam back in the days, which was a huge competition that created his career. James Sibilia won it as well. I won IDJ Raw Talent. That's another parallel. And you know who was the judge on it?
Who?
It's Nick Fanciulli.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we played in Chile like many years later, and I was like, "Do you remember that?" And I had the cutout of the actual article on my phone. He's like, "Holy shit, I do!" But
he's got some of the sharpest ears in the game, Nick. So he knows how to pick them.
Competitions used to be a thing that allowed talented, dedicated, young producers, DJs to have a spotlight on them and create moments.
They still do exist, but in just different forms, remix competitions.
Yeah.
I think they do still do DJ competitions. We did one for Radio 1 this year in collaboration with BBC Introducing, and 2 people got to come to Ibiza again and do the
amazing.
So we still do it.
Yeah.
But just at the time I did it, it was the opportunities that it opened up were, I think they've never been repeated again, to be honest with you. Like, it was just, and the lesson I always think with that is, when you're in this game, anything in life really, but specifically the music industry, obviously you got to work hard. But the one lesson I always think is and people say, "Oh, you make your own luck through working hard," and I kind of agree, but also I actually think it's more about taking risks and putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
You'll go back to the point where I was talking myself out of that competition, and then after a bit of light encouragement from friends and family, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it because you never know. Put myself out there, took a bit of a risk, and that's what created that bit of luck that now created the career that I've still got now. So
and that doesn't take away from all of the hard work, the many hours that you put in, like that you have to put in afterwards. Well, once you got given the ball, you got to run with it as well.
100%. You got working hard is just part of it. If you don't work hard, obviously you're never going to get anywhere. But everyone works hard now.
Yeah,
everyone in our game wants it. So what can you do that gives you that edge? And that is, trying new things, taking risks and putting yourself out there and seeing what lands.
You're now at Radio 1. You have the Sunday night slot.
Friday night slot.
But okay, so that was the Dance Anthems was the first one, was the Sunday night one?
Oh, sorry, no. So joined Radio 1 2012, Saturday afternoon it was.
Saturday afternoon,
4 p.m.
Right.
On a Saturday afternoon, it was the best slot.
Right.
It was, primetime Radio 1. I was 24 years old and never done radio before, and all of a sudden I'm on this great big slot. And
was there any problems of kind of stage fright and like, oh my god, like I'm being broadcast to like a million people now? Like,
my first show.
Because live is a whole different thing from recorded as well.
I still do it live. I'm actually better live because when I do recording, I think there's something in the back of my head that knows I can start again if I fluff a line. Whereas when it's live, I don't know, just something locks in. But it was the first show. I remember being so nervous, and my producer Jenny at the time, she had to calm me down. She got me this tea called a Moment of Calm. I always remember there was a brand of tea. I don't know. I think you meant to have it before you go to bed.
Yeah.
And she got me this tea, And I was sitting there having this moment of calm. And that became a thing for like the first few months of doing the show. I'd arrive at Radio 1, always 3 hours early because I was super keen. And then an hour before the show, right, should we have a moment of calm? I was like, yes, because I was just hyped up with energy and ready to go. And also, incredibly nervous. And I had a script like that thick, and every link was written out to the word, and just to sort of get me through it. But then obviously with anything over time, you get more comfortable and more used to it. And, now I go into a show with like 2 sheets just with telling me what the tracks are. And
how does it work with programming the show? How does it work with programming the show right now? And back then, is there like a certain thing where like these are tracks that are in heavy rotation right now? We have to have those included. How much input will you be able to put in it in the early days, and how is it now in terms of like programming the show and what music you play?
When I first started, it was programmed by the music team.
Right.
I'd have a few free plays that I would be able to choose my own tracks. But yeah, the radio and music team that program all the tunes that you hear across daytime now, they did that. And obviously, I was a brand new presenter, and it was still a daytime show, so they did that. And now it's basically the opposite. It's, I choose every single track together with my team. We have a music meeting every Tuesday where we go through all the new music that drops that week. And then we work out what's best to play as a new track mixed in with what we call recurrent tracks. Big dance tunes from recent times that we still love, and we keep them in rotation.
Right.
So that's how it works really, and it's fit into the remit of the show. Dance Anthems was about big commercial mainstream tracks with classics. My show, Dance Party, that I do now on a Friday night, is new music from big artists or big tracks is essentially what it is. So it's just sticking to that remit, and I'm very much more like a tastemaker now, whereas Dance Anthems was more like a reactive role, really.
That's it. I mean, this is why I sort of wanted to make the distinction between then and now.
Yeah.
And because now, obviously, like you have become somebody that's a tastemaker, somebody that, gives people a platform. And, I'm super interested in that process because
that's the best part of the job.
It's still a very, very big deal for a DJ to first hear their own music to come on FM radio, right? Like, not internet radio, not a stream like on demand or whatever, but like you dial it in, like you're in the car, you're on Radio 1, you hear the announcer telling, announcing, maybe saying like, hey, we have this new artist and this new track, and then the track drops. It's a huge goosebump type of moment for most people. I remember the first time I heard myself on Radio 1. You picked me for Friday Fire, for French Plan.
I remember it was on PIV. I remember.
It was supposed to come out on PIV. It never came out on PIV. No,
Do you know why
in the end, it came out. In the end, it came out on my own label.
Oh right, I only know that track because in 20
Prunk played it.
We did a back to back at ADE. Me, Prunk, and Chris Dussy, and they played that track. I was like, "What's this?" And it was the French Plan tune.
So it was a big, huge goosebump moment for me when I heard myself. It was during the pandemic. And you played it on the show, and for every producer, when that happens to them, it's just like it's a big deal. So how do you go about choosing those tracks? How do you become aware of people? I mean, you've just sort of given us a little bit of insight, like you heard somebody else play it in a back-to-back. But how does the process work for Friday Fire?
Well, that was the old feature that I did on that show when I was on 11 p.m. Now I do Hottest Record.
Right.
And that comes with a bit more responsibility because Friday Fire was basically a big club tune of the week. Hottest Record kind of fits into more of a wider ecosystem within the music industry. So it's always massive tunes, always big artists. So that's basically what it is. Big returning artists or huge tracks is what Hottest Record is. But how I pick them, honestly, is gut instinct. A good tune. It's like when you're picking tunes for a DJ set, but you then have to, so first of all, instinct. Is the record good? Yes, right. Next thing, is there a story with the record? Is it a big artist? Tick, tick. Right, next. Will the audience like it? Okay, yeah, they'll love it. And it's all these different layers really that go into choosing the hottest record. And that is the discussions we have every single Tuesday in our music
meeting.
And
your team.
Me and the team, yeah. So, I mean, it's always a team discussion. I do obviously get I wouldn't say a final say, but obviously I have to like the record in the first place, and then we discuss it basically.
Your opinion holds some weight, basically.
I like to think so, and I've been doing it a long time now, and Radio 1 trusts me with my opinion and what I think will work for the show, not just for Hottest Record, but just for a play on the show in the first place. So, yeah, it's an amazing position to be in, and I love doing it every single week.
Are the people on the team also coming from underground music backgrounds, or do they come more from broadcasting backgrounds?
Both,
how does it work?
Yeah. Lucy, my producer, and Liv, they both DJ.
Right.
They both love raving. They both love dance music, but they also are, two of the best in the world when it comes to broadcasting dance music. So it's an amazing team. So, yeah. And I trust their opinion as well. It's very important to have the trust with your production team. And because sometimes if I'm a bit unsure on a specific tune, it could be from a big artist, but I don't know if I like it. And then you go, what do you think? And they're like, well, and you have this open discussion, and it helps sort of form what goes in the show.
Well, you can hear the passion and you can hear the knowledge at Radio 1. You just know, and not just on Radio 1, but in the BBC in general when it comes to pushing electronic music, underground dance music. Why do you think BBC is so unique worldwide as being a national radio or national broadcasting service, but that also has the pulse is on the pulse of underground youth culture at the cutting edge of it?
Yeah.
Where, if you think about the two things, like a national institution and being on the cutting edge of underground youth culture, that shouldn't work.
Well,
but
I know
for some reason at the BBC it does.
Yeah, I think I know the official answer to that is because it's impartial. We have to be. There's no agenda. There's no commercial payments or interest from any of the DJs. Trust me, I've had friends fall out on me because I won't play the records, and it's not because I won't, because well, ultimately I treat every record the same that I listen to for the show, whether it's someone that I know or not. Is it good enough for the show? Should it be in the show? Yes or no? Just because I know you or you're my friend doesn't mean you're going to. And some people have fallen out on me because they're like, well, come on, and it's like, and that's really, I think, helped with building my reputation and credibility within the scene with the radio show. And then my personal opinion of why Radio 1 specifically is so on the pulse with dance music is because the legacy of, your Pete Tongs of this world and what they built. And it's something, it's where I learned what the next hottest records in terms of, the next dance records that you need to know about. You used to listen to Radio 1 because at the time...
The Essential Selection for me was a religious thing almost to watch, to listen to that every week, It was so important.
Well, we didn't have... When I was in high school, we didn't have social media, and it was all CDs and cassette tapes. And if you wanted to know what the new records were that were coming through, it was that show.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to keep that legacy going, albeit it's a completely different landscape now. But we still, Radio 1 Dance, are a trusted source, a trusted filter for. I mean, even more so now because there's so much music coming through. How are you supposed to get your head around what we should be listening to? And I think we've built the trust of the audience to be able to, show them what we think are the next records they need to know about.
Which brings me to the next section, and you've touched on that a little bit already, where you say it's a very different landscape now. How has the landscape changed from, Pete Tong doing Essential Selection in those days where Radio 1 ruled, and there weren't many other places where you could hear underground dance music, to now where you're competing with the likes of streaming services, platforms like SoundCloud, where everybody can just upload a DJ mix, and a myriad of sources where people can access underground music.
It's changed because obviously, there's a lot more platforms trying to get people's attention, a lot more places where you can discover new music. And I guess the difference is now when you hear a track on radio, mainstream radio, usually it means you're able to Shazam it and stream it, which I think for the greater good of an artist in particular is good, because if someone hears your track on the radio and they're able to go and buy it or stream it, then that's obviously going to go back to the artist. So I'm in favour of that. And when I first joined, actually it was the other way around. the aim was to get as many pre-sales as possible for on release day. You could sort of just make a massive splash. So you'd get all these dance records getting played on Radio 1 6 to 8 weeks before release.
Right.
Then when they got released, they'd go top 10, sometimes even number 1, which is kind of unheard of at these days because of the streaming model. But that's the difference. But I think now we've got our heads around it. I think it's a good thing, and radio's still a massively important cog in the machine of the journey of a record or an artist, especially specialist radio.
Yeah.
So when it comes to streaming, Spotify, if you're a new artist and you've got no monthly listeners, the chances of you getting an editorial playlist are pretty slim to none.
Yeah.
Whereas on radio, a new music show can pick your track up and give you the spotlight, give you the platform and start the story. And that's why I think it's as important, if not more important, at the moment for new artists.
Can you share some of the sort of best stories that you've had in sort of breaking talent on the show and what's happened to them?
I think who comes to mind? LF System. Obviously went on to have a number 1 with Afraid to Feel. I always think about them. They came through BBC Introducing. Then I championed them on my 11 p.m. show. They were one of my future stars. And yeah, to sort of watch them grow. I remember they had this track called Dancing Cliche that I just loved, and they couldn't clear the sample at first. And I said, I'm gonna play this on radio until they clear it. And I remember I played it 9 weeks in a row, and then they got it cleared, and then it came out. They signed to Warner, and then that in turn led to the Afraid to Feel record that went number 1. So really proud of that one. Prosper came through.
Yeah, they're absolutely massive now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hannah Lang, she first got played by Jaguar on Radio 1. Personally, one record I'm always proud of that I really got behind on radio was Cola, Camel Fat, 2017. I remember.
Great record.
Yeah, I didn't do that show. It was Annie Mac's show, but I remember I was covering that week in particular. And I came in and they were like, right, what should you do, hottest record? And I was like, there's this tune I've been playing called Cola by Camel Fat. And at the time they were doing well, and they'd had a few Beatport number 1s, and they were making tech house bangers.
Yeah.
And then I said, no, I've got a feeling about this record. But it reminds me of Dennis Ferrer, Hey Hey. I played it in Amnesia last night in Ibiza. And Radio 1 were like, oh, are you okay, if you're sure? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then, I'm not taking credit for that record, by the way. It's just, I'm trying to think of stories of...
Take a little bit of credit, it's fine.
The influence that radio can have on tracks and artists is pretty powerful still. So yeah, those are a few off the top of my head that I can think of. But there's cases like this every single week.
Yeah.
When we play a track and you still get tagged by the artist, like, oh my God, the record's been on Radio 1, and it's just like...
It's a huge thing.
That's the buzz.
It's a
not just
huge
Radio
thing.
1 though, there's so many like community radio stations and online radio stations that are dedicated to electronic music. They're so important for the scene, and then they just help careers. And I'm glad to be able to play a little bit of a part in that.
You know what? I think we're in some magic times again in terms of underground artists crossing over into the mainstream. I've started observing something recently, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I'm starting to see like your Rossies, your Josh Bakers, your Max Deans doing records that are, I wouldn't say crossing over like in a huge way that like it's daytime radio stuff, but certainly in terms of Rossi, it's daytime radio now, right? So like he went, I can't remember the last chart position
he
was.
Top 20.
Top 20.
Max Dean went to 13, we can't decide. I remember in June opening the show with Can't Decide, Max Dean, Back It Up by Josh Baker, and then a couple of weeks later we did Rossi and Jazzy Hottest Record, and I remember saying to the team, I'm so happy that this sound's crossing over now.
Yeah. And it's still underground music.
Yeah, it is, but
it's not really overly. It's not commercial at all, actually. Unless really they just have a vocal on an underground track.
Yeah,
that's it.
And it's authentically them.
Yeah,
and I think that's why they're having the careers that they're having now, because they're not trying to chase a particular trend. They're just doing them, but with an original vibe to it, and that's what's connecting. And the last few years, music, a certain genre of music, we was getting a bit too hard, a bit too fast, and a bit too cheesy for me. And I was like, so it was so refreshing when they came along with, and
because all those tunes are like, they're not really that high on the energy. They're like literally like groovers, and you could hear those, you know, like in an early set, you can hear them at an afters, you know, like they're proper tunes.
Big vocals.
Yeah.
I remember Calvin Harris doing an interview and I said to him, you know, what is it about your tracks that you think connects all the time? Because he just hit after hit. And he said, well, I've always just been into vocals.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I guess
in the beginning he was singing himself, you know, exactly. And he wasn't even bad at it. He was pretty good at it as well.
I like it when Calvin sings.
Man of many talents. He is he's an absolute hero of mine. Like he is just all round good guy. Makes amazing music, banger after banger after banger, and head seems to be in the right place. You know, like
he's just a humble guy still.
Which is rare in this, especially when you're elevated to these kind of heights. You know,
I think
to stay normal.
I don't think it's rare. I actually think the common thing I find, because luckily on my show I get to have a lot of contact with such big artists in the dance scene, and the one thing I notice, there's obviously exceptions, is they're all just down to earth, normal, nice human beings. So if there's a lesson in there, is be nice.
yeah. It's very important. I agree with that. Yeah. Okay, cool. I want to get a little bit more into the sort of touring, DJing part of your career. We've talked a lot of the broadcasting part of your career now. How do you manage to fit it all in? Obviously, the show is recorded live on Friday night, which takes away a big thing of, being on the road. How does it all work? The whole mechanics of it, the touring part of it.
No matter where I am in the world, always have to be in London on a Friday night, 6 p.m. to officially start the weekend, and that's how I want it. People say, "Oh, do you know what? Wish you could pre-record it." I'm like, no, because I get the same buzz doing a live radio show when you're getting all the messages coming in. You're in the moment, connecting with a million people who are all tuned in, as I do when I'm DJing to a club of a few hundred. It's obviously different dynamic, but same kind of buzz. And with the touring aspect, I don't know, I guess it's just because we love it, and I've always wanted to be the DJ. I've done it since I was 19 years old, and everything I do is to facilitate me DJing. I do the radio show, obviously because I love radio, but really I want to be a DJ. I make music because I want to be a DJ. I do a label because I want to put on my own parties. And that's it really. It's just something that is my career, but even when I've stopped doing it as a career, I'll still be the one playing tunes at my friends' birthday parties and in the house. And so touring is something that I just love doing. I know certain DJs complain about no sleep and traveling, but a hot take, that's just part of it.
It's part of the job.
Get used to it.
It is part of the job, and I think a lot of people also underestimate how hard it can be sometimes. I think especially the general public just thinks your job as a DJ is just go around the world and party. Getting to places can be really tough.
Look, there's logistical stresses that come as part and parcel of it. One recent thing, I've not really been public with it, not that I'm trying to hide anything, but I just think I don't know, is that I stopped drinking alcohol 6 months ago, and that for me this year's been a huge game changer. This time last year I was really struggling. I was doing Ibiza and Mallorca every week, festivals at the weekend, 2 radio shows, and trying to run the label. And it got to, I remember being on the phone to my manager at the time in mid-August, I can't do it anymore. I don't think I can go to Ibiza. I remember being in Cafe Mambo DJing the pre-party.
It's real.
Yeah. And I remember DJing and thinking, for the first time ever in my career, wow, I don't want to be here. And it was really hard. Not the fact that I didn't want to be there, but I've never had that thought. And I was really sad that I felt like that. And that all was because I was basically going too hard with the touring, but also I say drinking. I didn't have a problem or anything, but it's just part of it. If you shove a beer,
and it doesn't even mean you have to have an alcohol problem. Just what's on your rider, and you have a couple of beers, that's going to affect you 2-3 days later.
It caught up with me. I'm in my mid-30s now, and I've now got back time that I didn't have back then, and also. People say to me now, how do you do it? You just said at the start, how do you manage it? And this year is the no alcohol.
Yeah. So. Well, I can share something about that as well. I think touring actually got easier for me as I got older. Even although my schedule got busier because of that. At one point I decided alcohol in my rider is the gateway to all kinds of bad decisions.
But I still have it on my rider because when the boys
give
come
it to other people. Give it to other people. I at some point I was just saying just water on stage because I couldn't trust myself, right? And I was just like, if there's just water, like there's no danger. Because even like just smoking cigarettes, I don't even smoke, right? But like while I'm DJing, a few beers in, I'm just like chain smoking, you know what I mean? Playing and chain smoking. And then the next morning I hate myself. And like I'm hating myself, like what have I done, But things got easier for me when I started being really strict about the alcohol. And then also the gym. At one point, I hired a personal trainer to help me with like a body transformation type thingy. I was going to the gym like 2-3 times a week, meant to go 3 times, sometimes 2, and he was like, we're doing 4 times a week now. And then at some point I was going to South America, to Ecuador. And I was saying to him like, by the way, just a heads up, I'm going to be touring for like 2 weeks in South America. Like I won't be hitting the gym as much. And he goes like, what? They don't have gyms in Ecuador? And I was like, you're right, actually. That was an excuse, And once I started hitting the gym on tour, everything changed.
It's hard though, even if you're not getting indulged in the lifestyle, the late nights and the sleep, sometimes the gym does have to sort of make way. But you look at a lot of the new generation of DJs coming through are smashing it. Your Josh Bakers, your John Summits,
athletes.
Yeah, even like Rawdon, he's just coming through now. He's someone I'm really excited about. He came on the show in July, and we're chatting about this. And I think he was an example of how a lot of younger producers coming through are approaching DJing now. He says, sometimes I'll enjoy myself and have a few beers, but he's got his head on in terms of like what he needs to do to actually make it, and that is. Don't get lost in partying all the time. And look, there's no judgment. If that's your thing, that's your thing, and do it. I've been there myself. But the thing for young producers, I guess the point I'm trying to get to is no matter how successful or, how much touring you do, don't stop making the music. Make sure you keep making the tunes and putting one foot in front of the other, and don't just think, oh, I'm touring now. I've made it, because it makes me sound like old now, but as long as I've been at Radio 1, you wouldn't believe the amount of producers I've seen come through and then very quickly fall off.
Come and gone.
And it's really sad. And some big ones as well at the time. And you just nowhere to be seen now, because I think they just either, I don't know if it's they struggle with the balance or they just get too excited.
I mean, I think the music industry is just pretty brutal like that. Like you always have to keep doing the next thing. Like you can have a number 1 hit and a year later, that doesn't matter. You have to do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And the people that kind of thrive and succeed are the people that are very focused, have a game plan for a couple of years out, not just the next sort of 3 months. Are very deliberate where they put their energy and the things they do. And I totally agree. You can see it with, the sort of up and coming generation of sort of big stars now, like people that I've seen grow from underground names to headliners, your Rossies, your Josh Bakers, Max Dean, there's another friend.
They're three good examples of how you should do it. Look, if you get an accidental hit, great, good for you. But I think if to make it these days as a producer, it's all about growing your community and building a solid foundation, and that's the way I would always advise to do it. Is play the long game.
Slow burners,
because you have an accidental hit and then all of a sudden you're thrust onto main stages and you're in demand, but it can be pretty precarious because you got nothing to keep you up there really, unless you follow it up with something. And I just much prefer the route of releasing underground records and slowly progressing that way, building your brand. And Josh put on his first You and Me party in Manchester 10 years ago, and now he's sold out.
I played for the very first parties.
There you go. There you go.
For like 150 people in a little backyard. and him and Kurt putting on the parties, and now it's a festival.
Exactly.
So like, yeah, I mean, Josh is a really perfect example where I keep saying you're not going to get around doing it all.
Yeah.
And me and Josh met at ADE on the dance floor, and started talking, and I signed one of his first records to Meta.
Great.
He came out to Berlin, and we spent a couple of days in the studio. Then he invited me to play at You and Me, and he was just, back then he was like, very young, but very focused, always asking questions, not that I had all the answers, but like I was a little bit ahead of him in terms of my career and my label and stuff like that. And he was just asking a lot of questions. And he just went on to build this thing, and he did his own label. And then, the label became successful. And You and Me parties, as you said, 10 years ago. And now it's a festival. And it's a very organic, gradual progression. And people see like, I love the proverb, it takes 10 years to make an overnight success.
It literally did with him.
And it literally does.
But I always say as well, you got to be focused, you got to be curious, and you just got to find what you're really good at and just go with that to start with, basically. It's amazing to see his journey and how he's done it, and that's the way to do it, basically.
The building communities part is probably the biggest thing that I always talk to about my
it's
students.
Never been easier now with social media.
Yeah.
So, if you're wanting to start out now, produce, find what you're good at, stick with it, learn, be curious, ask questions, put yourself out there, take risks, and be on social media.
Yeah. I mean, social media is such a huge part of it. I interviewed Fish Octagon here not too long ago in this very same room. By the way, this room has a lot of history that we haven't even touched upon. You used to have your studio.
My studio.
This used to be your actual studio.
I remember coming in going, wow.
Which is so strange that we're like, you walked in here and like you knew everybody already.
I know. I lived in this very room in lockdown, and had some good times in it. And then before that, Andrew Weatherall studio.
Yes, there's a lot of history in these rooms.
Absolute pioneer. So,
talk to me a little bit about that, the music production side of things, and then also starting your own label. How did that all come about? How did the label come about, and how sort of did you hone your craft as a producer, and how did that journey, like how did you manage to do that journey in parallel to the broadcasting career?
Do you know what? If one piece of advice I would have given to myself if I was starting now, but also back then, was learn to produce. And then I was the DJ, and then I managed to get on Radio 1. Then I started getting all the gigs and playing shows and building my reputation and my profile through the radio show. And producing was something I sort of just did because I was told I had to. And now I really enjoy doing it, but obviously learning is hard. It takes a long time. And I would go in with engineers, and that's how I learned. Really, was working with engineers, and I work with a lot of good people. And now I can make a tune, but back then I couldn't. And I listened to some of my old productions, and I was like, oh god, it's. I wish there was a way to take them down. And don't you go looking. No.
Everybody's always mega critical about the early stuff. It's a lot of parallels.
It was more because I didn't fully make it. It was like I was getting put in with engineers to make tunes because that's what I was told I had to do, and it was never the style I wanted to do or the music I wanted to make. But now I can do it, and I'm much more proud of my work. But I wish I'd just done that earlier. Was making music, but now in a good place, and it's. I need to listen to my own advice because I've only released one record in the last year, but I guess because I'm not reliant on. People know me as radio presenter, DJ, been around for a few years, and now I've got a renewed energy within me and new territories I want to hit and new parties I want to play for, and the only way I'm going to do that is by making music. So I'm in a real thing at the moment of being in the studio as much as I can, and just the next year I'm going to put out a lot more records. So,
well, there's all sorts of different paths that can lead to Rome, right? And I've always said there's different models. Like I've had friends, for example, like Enzo Siragusa, who's primarily known, for somebody that's building a massive brand like Shoes London, and became known as a selector and DJ, and he's a producer as well. But the production wasn't at the forefront of his career. Then some people come through as a producer like myself, or many others. But then there's also people that come through different ways. But you know, as I said, at some point you realize there's no way of getting around doing it all, you know?
Yeah, you got to produce these days. Yeah. It's simple as that. There are obviously a few exceptions, but I think more and more so now, it's about making your records, having your own sound, having your own brand, and that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Talk to me about the label a little bit.
Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
So, do you know, it's the best thing I ever came up with. I went to a party in Birmingham with my friends. We used to, when I was like 18, 19, we used to travel every weekend, different raves. And let's just, in case BBC are watching, let's put it, I'd had a lovely time. I was in a different dimension, let's say. I had a lot of things going on at the time. My girlfriend had finished with me. I was feeling shit about that. I was at uni, I wasn't enjoying it apart from the DJing and the football side. I just had all these things. And I remember this one particular night going to Air Birmingham with my friends, and we just sort of escapism. And we came out at 7 a.m. and my friends were like, "Are you all right?" Because they know I was feeling a bit down. They're like, "Did you have a good night?" And I was like, and this sounds really cheesy when I say it, but I was like, "Yeah, it's just like, nothing else mattered but the music." It was like, what? And then when it came to picking a name for the label or what I wanted the brand to stand for,
I love that though, man. It's not cheesy. I love it.
But even now, to this day, social media, fashion, how you look, who you hang out with, whatever, nothing else matters really but the music. Like
it's
the music,
still true,
the music that you make, the music that you play, the music that you listen to. It all comes down to that, and that's the ethos behind the label is like the music's got to be good, and then everything else on top of that is the layers that you put on to work towards a career or whatever. So that's the reason for the name, and it actually started as a party. It wasn't a label at first. The label really properly didn't start independently until 2019. We put on the first party in 2013. It was me, Mark Knight, Bontan, and Josh Butler was the first lineup in Manchester. We did it, and that was the reason. It was just an excuse to put on parties, and then we started the label in 2019. The first release was me and Eli and Fur.
Right.
We got a Beatport #1 straight off the bat, which was great, but it's just
pretty amazing for the first release.
It's just been.
Where do you go from there?
I know. Well, it's just been an amazing outlet to be able to sign a mixture of my heroes and also put the spotlight, which is the most important reason I do the label, on new talent. And yeah, we've had a few good success stories with it, and yeah. I mean, last year the highlight was being able to get a remix from Carl Cox. That was a definite highlight. But
amazing.
Yeah, we've also had who we had on the label. Alicia, I'm trying to think who's come through. Who's been pretty big. Yeah, Alicia Gaskin we had recently. Yeah, it's just I just love doing it. It's definitely a passion thing doing the label. It's an important part of what I do, and we're gonna ramp it up even further going into the next year. So,
really, what are your plans?
Well, it's just increase the output. We just do 1 to 2 releases a month, but I want to increase that ever so slightly just to make a bit more noise around the brand, and because I think to make a splash with the new artists, you have to have bigger releases. I don't know, think of like your Tourums and your Defecteds.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have like 1 or 2 big names, so that it creates the momentum for when you have a new name. It
lifts everybody around them up as well.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And rather than just sporadically putting out records that I like or play on my DJ sets, like having more like strategy around the label and just create it into more of a bigger brand, really, to make the spotlight bigger, so that when we do sign new artists, it helps them in their journey.
Yeah, I think there's something incredibly satisfying to see people putting out like a release on your label and then doing well, and actually giving them that platform. Like for me, like doing Dojo now, like it's actually become probably the most satisfying part about the business is giving people a platform, you know? And I think, you know, everybody that is has the privilege of having some power in this industry, it's almost like a duty, to do that. And I think luckily in electronic music, there's many people who have really they have taken that mindset on and really made it a sort of core part of their careers. I'm thinking of Jamie Jones, for example. How many people has Jamie Jones given a platform to, That's like, how many careers has he created,
Hot Creations would probably be the blueprint of what I want to do when nothing else matters.
Yeah.
We had come through there, Patchett Topping, your Detlef and Lappmans back in the day.
Yeah.
Rossi, Alicia, all these guys that are killing at the moment, all come through Hot Creations. And yeah, what he's done with that is, it's almost like when you start out as a new producer, right, what labels, especially when it comes to house and tech house, right, what do we want to do? Hot Creations, that's the goal. And that's where I would love to see Nothing Else Matters one day.
In Radio 1, you kind of have a front seat to, watching people's careers. You break a lot of new artists, you see them rise. Some of them, go away pretty quickly. Some of them manage to have long and very successful careers. Have you seen any kind of pattern or a certain trait that people possess that gives them longevity, that allows them to have long, successful careers?
Yeah, I think the key to breaking through and getting an audience is finding that balance between what's current, but also putting your own original spin on it. I think is a good way of starting out and then building from there. I kind of said it earlier, like finding what you're good at and just sticking at that and just working towards that, being consistent, taking the risks, putting yourself out there, and just feeding your community and fans and just building it brick by brick. It's a long journey. And I use Prosper as an example in an earlier question. And I think, they broke through. They had a couple of moments. They went down this kind of like live electronic Chemical Brothers-y kind of sound. It was like Chemical Brothers meets Eric Prydz, and it was amazing. But it only got them so far. And then I think they just came a bit lost where to go. And then they took a risk by going back to the drawing board and making, sort of reinventing deep house in their own way. And now they're making tunes with, Josh Baker and Clooney, and they've got an album coming, and that's, but they've always been authentically true to themselves, and they've never chased a trend or panicked. So I think that's the trait really, is being sticking to the plan, but sometimes taking a risk to try and lock into what is current, but doing it your way. Being nice, is also important.
Yeah.
People, it's a big industry, but it's also quite connected. People talk,
People talk and people find out real quick if you're a dick.
Exactly. There's only a few occasions where I've come across that, but we won't name names. So yeah, I think that's really it. It's being original and sticking to remember why you started and sticking to it, and don't get lost in all the noise.
I think that chasing trends is a huge one, and I keep saying that to my students as well.
I think I've heard you say this is, the music you're trying to emulate is what they made 2 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're making what's in the charts at Beatport right now, most likely that producer would have made that track well over a year ago. I mean, like if there's a real quick turnaround, you're a label owner as well. A quick turnaround is probably like 6 months, something like that.
Yeah.
They made the tune, you signed it, it fits into a release schedule.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of other releases coming first.
But you can do that. You can slip into that stream of wave of whatever that sound is, and have relative success. But if you really want to make a impact, make a splash, and have your own thing, then you're always going to be 2-3 steps behind.
Yeah, I think you can certainly, like, if you're early in the curve to a trend and you're one of the first people that are jumping on a sound, basically you can certainly have a decent career. And many people have decent careers doing that. You know, they're early on the trends, they pick up on trends early and they make that sound early on. And, you know, there's a necessity of doing that as well as a DJ. You have to go with the times, you know. You can't just be stuck in the past or, you know, be a complete contrarian. But at the same time, so some people can be complete contrarians as well. You know, I'm thinking of Fortet and people like that, you know, like what I'm talking about is that I think people who want to be really successful are the ones that carve out their own niche, you know?
100%.
And you see that again and again, you know? Like, I've seen it with Josh, you know, where like he was starting to make like a certain sound that was very easily identifiable as his signature sound, like a certain type of 303 type bass line that grooved in a certain way. And then all of a sudden, when other people started jumping on that sound and making it, I was like, he's got something going on here because that amplifies you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
It's like he becomes a reference point then.
Exactly. So. And I've seen that happen many times, you know, the people that sort of take the time to carve out their own niche, but obviously that takes a lot of sort of bravery, risk taking, you know, like believing in yourself to being like, I want to do something completely different than everybody else. And I'm just going to keep doing that. That takes bravery, you know, because you can go the easier way and sort of emulating what others do and still do well. But I think it's a brave path to take if you carve out your own niche. You know?
100%. Yeah. But you've got to do it, otherwise you'll just be too safe and you might be the hardest working producer and DJ in the game, but if you're not putting yourself out there, you're not going to create that look and create those opportunities that others are getting.
So, Danny, tell me, when you pick the hottest record, what are you looking for in an up-and-coming artist?
To be a hottest record, the most important things are that it's a massive record already in the clubs, there's a story behind it, there's genuine heat, momentum, or you're a big returning artist. That is the point of the hottest record. It's quite literally the biggest dance track of that week.
Okay. And how do you figure out like which one that is? Is this just you and your team sort of going like, hey, this is what we're hearing in the clubs, like this is the momentum that's building around a certain tune, like how do you figure that out?
Well, the way we decide is we go through all the new music that's dropped that week and we sort of filter it down to maybe 2 or 3 options and then we discuss. Sometimes it can pick itself. If it's, for example, a huge track by Calvin Harris, obviously we'll listen to it to make sure it's still to the level that we know of Calvin, and then
which it will be.
Yeah, and we'll get, it's not always.
Oh, really? Okay.
There was a track earlier in the year where we didn't even play it.
Okay.
I think I can say it now because when he came on for Blessings, we did the hottest record. We kind of spoke about it. He had a track earlier in the year and he himself will admit that it was a risk to release it because it was a complete departure of sound, but it was called Smoke the Pain Away. And it just wasn't right for the show.
All right.
It was still a big record. It was more country vibes, and it was a daytime radio record, but it wasn't right for what I thought was for dance party. But then he came back with Blessings with Clementine Douglas, and that was hottest record and one of the biggest tunes of the summer. So not always. So we have to make sure, even the big, even the big guys, we have to make sure that it's still a good record. And then me and the team will discuss it. We'll have an open, honest conversations, and then we'll go with what we think. We also are we also like to make sure we are representing minority groups, and I'd like to see more female hottest records because I still think there's a huge imbalance between female commercial dance artists. There's plenty in the underground making amazing music, doing great things, but I still think we need there's too many male headline DJs, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And when we're picking hottest records, we are very mindful of that as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now I would like to ask you pretty much the final question of this podcast, which is something that I always ask my guests, which is if there's any advice that you could give to your younger self, looking back of all the things that you've done, what would you have done differently, if anything? Or, you know, could be all the same, but what advice would you give to your younger self?
Honestly, it would be to just produce straight off the bat. If it was for me personally.
You heard it right here.
Yeah.
We can teach you at Dojo Music.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing at Dojo, and the videos are amazing, and the community of producers that you got coming through is so exciting. And I think that's literally it. Just produce. Don't worry if it's sounding shit. Everyone's first records do. Just keep doing it and be patient. I know I've got a few friends who are like a year into their production journey, and they've had a few releases, and they're like, right, where are the gigs? And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's not as easy as that.
No, it's really not.
But unfortunately, it's the way that you got to start is making your own records. And what other advice would I give? Is I don't know. I'm quite happy with how I did it. Really, I enjoyed it. I did as much. I put myself out there as much as I could. I think that's the other thing. Actually, is the other bit of advice. Actually, I think is really good, and there's plenty of examples. Is if there's a particular sound that you want to hone in on. If there's look what the parties are that play that music. Look at the DJs that play. Look at the DJs that are top of the game in that sound, and just basically tunnel vision towards that.
Yeah.
Is I think what I would advise if I was giving that to my younger self or someone who's just starting out, because it gives you a clear roadmap for a start. So there's so much noise and so many different distractions at the moment. It's easy to get led astray. So if you hone in on a particular sound, party or DJ, that gives you the roadmap, and just try to get to know them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember Max Dean jumping around DC10 at Solid Grooves in 2022, and now he's headlining. I remember, who else is a good example?
I was there with him, literally, in 2022.
Ben Sterling's another one.
Yeah.
He was everywhere in Ibiza in one particular year. I think it was before COVID, actually, but he was everywhere. And
Josh Butler was telling me that. He was like, when Ben Sterling was like, much younger kid, he was always at the race, he would always show up, he would always say hello.
And do you know what? He was making good music, but so is the next person.
Yeah.
What's going to make the promoter book you over someone else who's just staying in the studio and or not putting themselves out there? And it's because it's all about relationships.
Because he likes you.
Yeah, exactly. And as annoying as that may sound, it's just part of it. It's
super important.
Yeah.
I used to go to ADE way before I ever played at ADE.
Yeah.
Just I wanted to be part of it and meet everybody, because like I knew that relationships are built on the dance floor, in the toilets, at
the afters, everywhere.
At the afters, everywhere, in all sorts of locations, and it's important to be there, you know, and it's important to talk to all of these people, you know, and I always sort of had the mindset of like, I want to build the relationships before I actually need them, and then when I do need them, I'm not going to come empty-handed. I'm always going to have something to offer, and what I have to offer is music, basically, And
I think, I'm giving that advice. It's not always going to happen. You might not get a gig off, and definitely you won't get those gigs going to one party. You've got to just keep it consistent, keep putting yourself out there, but you never know when that chance might come. And another example I thought of, and I've used this a couple of times, but it's a good one, because Sawley, do you remember Sawley?
I do.
Love Louis, top guy. Hideout Festival. This was years ago. I remember he came up to me and I was eating a mouthful of pizza, and he's like, "Oh, do you mind if I give you a USB stick?" I'm like, "Yeah, 1 second." Gave him a USB stick, and it was just complete chance meeting, and he had a track on there called Dead Eye, and I played it on the radio. It then got signed to Defected and became one of his biggest tracks, and gave him a bit of a boost into the industry, and we became good friends, and we played together a lot, and we released on Nothing Else Matters, and that all was down to this one moment on the beach outside of Papaya at Hideout Festival.
I love those stories.
Yeah,
I love those stories.
But if he was just chilling in Sunderland, just sending emails, he wouldn't have.
It wouldn't have happened. Yeah. It wouldn't have happened. You've got to be in it to win it, and you've got to be out there putting yourselves amongst the people.
Yeah,
this is the perfect thing to end the podcast on.
Yeah, good.
I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Time flew. It's 1 p.m. and you got to be off now.
We can do another hour.
Yeah.
We'll do part 2 one day.
We'll do part 2 one day. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I always forget doing this, but I just want to make sure that I don't forget this time. If you like this podcast, if you enjoy this podcast, hit the like button, hit subscribe. You're helping us out to make this podcast spread and for the knowledge to propagate out into the world. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks for coming on, Danny.
And if you're an aspiring producer or you're curious about producing, sign up to Dojo because they've got some amazing videos up there. So
thank you very much. I really appreciate the endorsement. Thanks, my man.
Pleasure, man. Thank you. Cheers, mate.
That is it. It's a wrap.